Okay. All right. Okay. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Beatrix Dart today to you. She was born in Basel in Switzerland and went to the University of Constance in Germany, where she earned a PhD in statistics. For 6 years, she then worked globally at the consulting firm McKinsey & Company. And since 2000, she has been professor of strategy at U of T's Rotman School, where she has also filled various positions related to executive education and experiential learning. Until recently, she was the executive director for Rotman's Initiative for Women in Business and has led many national and international campaigns for the advancement of women. In the public realm, she has also pursued her interest in promoting women in business and management. She served on advisory committees for ministries, co-chaired Canada's first women-only trade mission to Japan, and was on the advisory board for United Nations Women in Canada. It should by now be clear that a guiding principle for her work is social impact. Most recently, she has devoted much of her effort to the longevity economy, and I'm much looking forward to today's talk on Retired, Not Expired, the Longevity Economy Unveiled. Without further ado, let's welcome Beatrix.
Thank you, Oli. So I'm super excited to be here. Ooh, there's feedback. Okay, perfect. And welcome to everybody who's on Zoom. I hope you can see and hear me okay. If not, put it in the chat and Linda is doing her best to let me know. But great to have everybody. This topic couldn't be more perfect for this audience. Quite frankly, you are my research audience, you know? So I'm really looking forward to the discussion later on. And I mentioned it to a few people over lunch. I will actually on Monday go to a conference on this topic at Stanford. So this is about as perfect and as timely as it can be. I'm really excited. Please raise your hand if I speak too fast. Do I need to speak slower? Everybody good? Okay. I try not to, and because English is my second language, I never slur words. So you will understand every single word I'm saying, which is great. Okay, so with that, let me just jump right into the topic. And as I said, I'm very interested in the discussion that might hopefully shed some more insights into it. The matter of fact is that due to medicine and healthcare advancements, we actually have gained a lot of extra years, probably somewhere around 30 extra years. And the question is, what do we do with them? And I've been chatting with a few people already, and so I know some of you have figured something out. Some of you are maybe shrugging their shoulder, but the point actually is that we're not supposed to be here. And I don't know how far you can see it, but this is our life expectancy at birth. So if you were born in the 50s, you should have expired by 68, right? So now, obviously, we don't want that. But now, look at how the life expectancy has increased. If you're born today, you can certainly, on average, assume that you will turn at least 83. Now, many of us will turn older. And I will come to that topic in a moment. But the point is that this whole longevity wasn't actually planned. It's kind of a historical surprise that we are living that long. And we haven't really figured out yet how to change our systems around it. Our systems are still set up for an expiry date somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, which is just not the case, right? So what does that look like? I like this slide because The Economist magazine in 2014 kind of picked up on this topic. And they had an article which they called The Age Invaders, which that's truly the topic, the age invaders. which was highlighting sort of the staggering rise of numbers of old people worldwide. And so back then, the economist in that article projected that the global population will have at least 1 billion people older than 65 years aged in the following 20 years. So that was at that point, we were around 600 million in 2014. So they forecasted that in 20 years, by 34, we would have 1 billion. Well, we are now 10 years later, more or less, and we are already at 860 million. So it's aging much faster than people thought. And by 2050, the recent forecasts show that we probably will have more than 2 billion people over the age of 60. 2 billion people. And if you think about it, the first time in human history, we now have 5 generations coexisting on this planet. And I can look at it in my own extended family. My spouse's father is turning 91, and they are not only grandchildren, but great-grandchildren who are already at university level. So depending on how fast they might have children, there might be 5 generations just in this family alone, right? It is stunning. It hasn't happened before in human history. So looking specifically at Canada, just I bore you a little bit with statistics, and then we come to more topical things. But in Canada, if you look at it, we are currently almost at 20%, not quite, just 19% of a population of 65 plus. Why that matters? There is this term called super aged country. And you join that group of nations of super aged if you have more than 20% of 65-year-olds in your population. So we're not far off. We probably will get there in the next 4 years. Now, that projection, if you continue to project out by 2040, probably a quarter, 24% is the number here in the pie chart, probably a quarter of the population will be 65 plus, right? So that is quite a change where we are going. If you think about who are the current super aged nations, anyone want to take a guess? Japan. Japan is number 2. There is a nation that is older. Sorry? Nope. Italy is there. Italy is number 3. We have Italy with number 3. They're about 25%. We have Japan with 30%. There's one country. Okay, it's small and it's in Europe. It's Monaco. Monaco has 36% of people older than 65. Okay, who doesn't want to live in Monaco, right? But yes, there are several others, of course, as well. These are just in the top ranked. But of course, even South Korea, Germany, Italy, Finland, Portugal, all of them are already super aged nations. Okay, so there are these notions about how challenging it will be for society. But there's a bit of a silver lining here too. And that is, I hope you can see that this is the labor force participation of 65 plus. And it shows from 2000, we had about 6% of people that are 65 and older in the labor force participating still, working. We are now currently at about 15.5%. People want to work, right? So, and I'm explaining why this matters but first of all, just keep that message. Older adults increasingly stay active, whether it's economically or socially. That's an important point to make. Why is that important? So we looked at the demographic. We can see populations are aging, particularly here in Canada as well. And if you look at it from an economist point of view, and I know I have a few economists here probably in the audience as well, There are three factors, right? When we look how demographic impacts the economy, usually the factors are workforce, our productivity, and how much we save. Okay. So on the workforce issue, well, people are working longer. I just showed you the labor force participation has gone up, right? Some do so because of financial circumstances. Maybe you might not be able to retire and can't afford it, but most of them do it because they like what they are doing. They enjoy their work, right? So in addition, a strong predictor for extended work life is, drum roll, education. So if you look at it, this is a chart from the Economist, and I apologize, it's US data, but I dare to say we can probably extrapolate to Canada from this. But if you just look, and I'm sorry, some of the dots are a little small, but what it's trying to say is at the bottom you see the professional degree or doctorate people, and at the upper end of the scale you see less than high school, and then you got sort of everybody in between. So at the age of 62 to 74 is what we're looking here. Labor participation at the age between 62 and 74 by level of education. This is what we're looking for. And you can see the higher educated, if you go to the dots at the bottom, the higher educated they are, the higher the participation in the labor force at 62 plus, right? It's not hard to explain. If you are less educated, you probably have a more manual job, which as you get older, is probably harder to do. On the other hand, if you're higher skilled, you probably have jobs that, tend to pay more and probably give you also more incentive to keep going. So they are reasons why you might probably continue working. And if you are higher educated, you also live healthier and therefore longer, which means if you continue working, you can still enjoy the fruit of your labor, even if you work until 65 or 70. So that's kind of by education. So does that mean the workforce will keep growing? No. Unfortunately, we have another big factor in demographics, and that's the birth rate. And as you probably all know, in most developed countries, our birth rate has been going downhill quite dramatically. We need 2.1 as a replacement birth rate, right? For each couple, two people, two babies plus a little for the error. So we need 2.1 as a replacement birth rate. In Canada, we are somewhere between 1.4 and 1.5, way below. So we have a shrinking population because of birth rate. We have fewer young people joining the workforce. It's just where it's going. And, we don't balance that out with, an increased labor force participation of 65 plus. So either we need mass immigration, which is unpopular, or we'll have a shrinking workforce. It's pretty straightforward. All right. So productivity. So productivity, when you think about it, I think there are many, many studies that show that your cognitive and your physical abilities kind of decline as you get older. However, there is technology like AI. There is your experience that you bring, the people skills that you have, and really important motivation, like what kind of motivation you bring to something. That all enhances actually productivity. And again, higher education, higher productivity, right? So there's a little bit, again, on research from the Economist that I picked out for you. There's another good piece of good news. I'm going to read it to you. Our cognitive health has also improved over the decades. So here's a quote from The Economist. It's actually quoting research at the Cognitive Aging Laboratory at the University of Virginia. 70-year-old in 2022 had similar cognitive and physical health scores to the average 53-year-old in 2000. So if you're in the 70s, it's the new 50. We got it officially. The point is that with fluid intelligence, which might decline, it's what's called crystallized intelligence that actually improves up into the 70s. And I'm not the specialist on any of these topics. And, I'm looking here at the audience. There might be some specialists who can explain that better than me. But the good news is that our cognitive skills have improved over the decades as well, right? So I think that's great news. And any experience that we bring as older adults help us also with, our slower mental speed, right? So that's good too. All right, so coming then, if skill and education determine how well and how long older people might work, that also has big implications on savings. Because many of the educated older people actually accumulate far more money than they draw down on. Right. And so there's circumstantial kind of evidence, and I have to just look it up. It's a French economist. His name is Thomas Piketty. You know Piketty? Yes. Okay, perfect. Calculated average wealth of a French 80-year-old is 134% more than a 50 to 59-year-old, just meaning accumulating wealth, right? Which also means that we are probably passing on quite a bit of wealth to the next generation. So, of course, all of this isn't evenly distributed. I pointed out a few times higher educated do have a better score on all of this. So unfortunately, it means that the less educated ones will not fare as well in the aging process as the better educated ones. But if you put these factors together, I think there's a bit of a case that we can make that aging shouldn't be necessarily just considered as a burden, but rather can we reframe that as look at all the capabilities that is available here to society. And this is what I'm hoping to convince you upon. Think about when you grew up, what the expectation was. Like I certainly grew up with this, you go to university, you go to school, childhood education, you go to university, and you learn everything you need to know until you're 22, 23, something like that. And then you start your job and you work and use what you learned and hopefully raise a family. And then 65 comes around and congratulations, here's your retirement. And you rest and decline and wait. And that was sort of designed for a 68-year-old life, right? When I showed you the birth expectancy in the 50s, like by 68, we were kind of like, okay, so we have a few years of retirement. And if we are lucky, we go on a trip or two. And, that's kind of it, right? That does not apply anymore. And so, now we have something that has clearly still childhood, and then we have a career at some point, but then we might step out for some caregiving, or maybe we have some life-changing events, and maybe we have a second career, and then maybe we take a sabbatical, or again, something else might be happening, and we try retirement. And I don't know how many of you have tried retirement, failed, and have come back to something new. But that's a pretty common pattern, and often it's called the third act. Like, what is your third act, right? So this has changed a lot, the whole setup. And we are now looking at continuous learning. And I know some of you have probably signed up for programs where you can continue to learn, like this, like senior college. Brilliant. We continue to learn. And there are now research pieces, and Stanford is quite leading in that, and MIT as well, looking at the 100-year life. How do we design a 100-year life? It's not out of question, right? Like, what does that mean if we have a 100-year life? Like, do we really stop working at 60 or 65, and then what? wait until we can't move anymore? Like, what's 100-year life going to look like? So that is kind of where this whole longevity economy is going. And I'm wondering what might now resonate with you. So I'm trying a few things on you and see what resonates. But let me just first think about retirement just for a moment. I call it freedom with friction. And, the nice thing is, well, most of us decide to retire at some point because you want flexibility. True? Yeah, you don't want to do those, 9 to 5 thing, or I mean, as academics, we don't do 9 to 5, but we probably do, we have duties and committees that really we could do without. And so, there's that sense of freedom and that sense of flexibility when you step out, right? It, however, also means that there's less recognition. You're kind of out. And fewer roles. If you think about it from business executives, I've been working with one of the CEOs of the banks, and he just retired in October. He was a big deal, CEO of one of the Canadian banks. And then you retire and you kind of disappear from public life and nobody calls you anymore. And there are no more emails asking you to show up. And maybe you have a little bit of a speaker circuit for a little while going, but that will fade away too, right? And then what? So the question is, how do we tap into all these hidden assets that you would bring, right? For example, knowledge and experience and mentorship and, the institutional memory of what is going on here, right? How often are you tapped to bring your experience in? Probably not often enough. I hope for some of you are, but probably not often enough. So although you're available with all your knowledge, it's difficult to continue to contribute. So, and we have experiences that shaped us. I don't know whether you can see it. These are the yellow pages. We didn't have Google. We had yellow pages. Remember that? I saw a very funny YouTube video where they asked a 16-year-old what she thought yellow pages might be. She had no idea. It was hilarious to listen to this. Yellow pages, right? This was our contact list. It wasn't in our phone. And I can tell you, I memorized way more phone numbers back then than today. I can barely remember my own phone number these days. It's all in my phone, right? So, but that was our contact list, the phone list. This is how we blocked callers. You had to put the handle down, right? Yes, that's how we block callers. And, text messages, well, we had text messages that looked like that, right? Little paper things that were passed around. Phone calls, you had to actually step out. Remember public phone booth where you had to have the coins ready and you had to wait your turn? Yeah, right? Today's 19-year-olds who are just entering now university, they have never experienced a world without an iPhone. Imagine that. Never experienced a world without an iPhone. Right? 2007 was when the first iPhone came around. So, well, sadly, there are other experiences too. And some of these experiences are not quite so much fun. And that is ageism. And whether that is trying to find a job when you're in your 50s, let alone when you're in your 60s, or whether it is trying to rent a car. You tried that? If you're over 70, in some cases, you're not even permitted. Do you know that? And if you are, there are extra checks, right? And you had to submit a higher deposit. It's like crazy, particularly after I just showed you that the cognitive capacity of a 73-year-old is as good as a 50-year-old used to be. So, what is really going on? Well, they just use age as a proxy for risk, right? Or have you ever gone somewhere where there's technology and, they look at you and then they explain it really slowly to you? Oh my God, so infuriating, honestly. It's like, yep, I know how to press a button. Thank you very much. I know what start means. So ageism does exist. And that doesn't make it easy. It's one of the big challenges currently in society that there's just the assumption made that you won't be able to contribute, right? Now, some countries have actually done a little better on that. And I give you two examples before I come to Canada. I just came back from Singapore. And in Singapore, longevity is used as a complete design challenge. It's phenomenal. So they have created green spaces. They push on healthier diets, on activity. The public transport in Singapore, for anyone who has been there, as you will know, it's phenomenal, but it also makes you walk, right? There's walking involved. There's you have to get out of the house. There are community hubs. And yes, they also, as a government, embrace lifelong learning. They have what they call the Silver University, where the government subsidizes any course you want to take. Any course you want to take. If you're over 60, you can take whatever course you want, courtesy of the government. So they have figured out there's something we need to do with our aging population. And if we want to keep the healthcare costs down, we have to get people out there and moving, right? The other country, not quite by design, but more by necessity, I want to talk about is Japan. And Japan has extreme aging going on. Japan has almost 100,000 people older than 100. 100,000 people older than 100. And just on that chart, if you see that orange bar chart going up there, this is average, right? Life expectancy. So you don't see the 100 on the list, but the orange are the women and the dark green are the men. And I'm pointing that out because of these 100,000 over 100, 90% are women. 90% are women. Stunning. Now, Japan in parallel also has a abysmal birth rate. Their reproduction rate, I told you what Canada is, 1.4 to 1.5. Theirs is 1.1. So barely any children are born, and it keeps on falling. It's declining, right? And it has a lot of factors to it, but it keeps on declining. So now we are looking at a lot of aging people and not many young people coming into the workforce. So how do they solve all of that? So they have a lot of robotics, and I went to one of the nursing homes to see it. There's robotics to help taking care of aging people. Some is people supported by robotic structures. Some is literally robots lifting up people. They have these robot puppies. I put the seal up there in the corner that interact with the person to give them something to cuddle with, and it makes kind of little puppy noises and whatnot. It's kind of a little sad, to be honest, when you go in there. It's kind of almost dehumanized. I mean, there's like sensors that will measure whether somebody's bladder is full or not, and need to be rushed to the toilet. And then there are all kinds of sleep sensors built in every mattress, and that's the future. But they were proudly showing that one person in the hallway can monitor these systems, and it's about 20 people in the bedrooms. It looked to me like stashed away, to be honest with you. It wasn't a very nice human feeling, but that's how they solve the problem of a shrinking workforce and increasing age, right, with robotics. What these countries share, however, are longer working lives. So you do go to the stores and there will be somebody at the cash and you think, I should help her. Like it's such an age difference that you feel almost embarrassed that somebody is trying to pack your groceries, right? But that is the reality that you find in Japan currently. You might have heard about blue zones. Blue zones are regions that were sort of identified by demographers who noticed an unusually high concentration of centenarians, of people over 100. in these areas. And there are currently 5 of them. There's in Japan, in Okinawa. Then there is in Greece, in the island Ikaria. Then is Sardinia, Costa Rica, on the Nicoya Peninsula, and one in California as well. And so the common characteristics of these blue zones is that people there have very strong social ties, very strong. Like in Japan, there's literally a support network that lasts from childhood to their latter lives. Amazing, the friendships that they have there. In some other places, it's more the diet, it's what they eat. But they also have your plant-based diets often pop up in those blue zones. But there's also something about consistent, natural physical activity, moving. Now, can I make one comment about that? None of them are in a very cold weather zone. I was actually looking up the temperature in Okinawa because I thought Japan could be cold. It's 19 degrees there as we speak. So I'm like, yeah, nobody there has an ice cold freezing zone where you can't walk safely outside because you're afraid you might slip, right? So might be a little easier to maintain physical activity than living in Toronto, Canada. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of, yeah, one of my observations on that one. But it is surprising that these zones exist, right? And as I said, the question is there anything that we can learn from this? Is there something that we can design? And actually in Alberta, they are trying to design a city. Again, I'm not sure the natural outdoor activity will work so well, but okay. So they're trying to design a city in Alberta to have this community feel and to have these activities and set up and more better natural diets, etc. So curious whether it will be successful. But as I said, Canadian winter is just a little harder to maintain. We all have to do shopping mall walking or something. Okay, so Canada. So in Canada, we are slowly getting there. And this is why I am getting excited about this topic. We have started to look into longevity. We're a little bit behind. UK has already done a lot. Other countries have done a lot. The US, of course, has done a bit more. But we are getting there. The 2 major developments, just from a business perspective, as I'm looking at it, is Manulife. I think everybody knows Manulife, right? They just launched in November, just now, November 2025. They launched the Global Longevity Institute here out of Toronto, headquartered here, but it's global. They put $350 million commitment behind it with the idea to research longevity, more commitments, advocacy around longevity, partnerships, social contributions. I'm really interested to see where that is going. That's brand new, and I'm in talks with them. The other nice thing that finally popped up on Canadian media is the CPP, the pension plan. The Investment Insights Institute just published a report also in November, and they called it Longevity Dividend. And the reason I put it on here is it's finally some positive framing around aging. So far, it all has been about, the pension shortfall on the system, the pressure on the healthcare system. This is finally a report that says, there might be actually some societal benefit, which is great. I'm excited about that. So they looked at it and they wrote, we are looking for societal advantage, economic vitality, and social contributions, which is great. And of course, they are saying, well, look, our contribution is we are providing very stable and secure retirement money, right? Our income. So this helps with mental health. I'm like, okay, I suppose it's a little far-fetched, but okay, I take it. It's at least something positive around longevity. I put up this kind of pyramid, but really what it's supposed to be is sort of 3 pillars. Because when you look at these reports, when you talk to businesses and when you talk to individual about retirement, they say, okay, there are three elements that we need to focus on. You know, staying healthy. And I think everyone here in the room would agree, right? Like whatever we can do to stay healthy, whether it's nutrition or exercise or sleep or mental health, that's one pillar. The second pillar is being financially secured, like having enough retirement income and financial income so that we can live, comfortably. And then there's a third pillar, which gets not enough attention, I'd say, and that is what is called social wellness. So that's now a term. New terms are popping up all the time. Social wellness. Social wellness is, do you have purpose? Really, do you find purpose in your life, in particular post-career? Do you find purpose, right? And just talking a little bit more about that, why it matters. And it hasn't really settled in yet so well. So many companies, and there are lots of startups here as well, focus on health. And it's more like, okay, if somebody is aging and their health is declining, what can we do to make their lives more comfortable? So, and I'm not trying to be dismissive, but like a better wheelchair or better hearing aid or something, which is fine. You know, that's important too, right? But that is where a lot of the focus currently is. So Age Well, the National Institute on Aging, there's a whole, it's called Age Tech startup community now. Most of them, like 90+%, are focused on your health and how to support in declining health. Social wellness doesn't get so much attention. Now, again, I'm not the health expert, so I'm not coming to you and talk about how you should stay healthier to live better lives. I'm also not a financial expert. I'm not coming to you talking about, invest in this or that, or have this kind of setup. Not my expertise. There are lots of people out there who do better. I'm interested in social wellness. I'm interested in purpose. I'm interested in how do you spend your years so that you feel fulfilled and that you have social wellness. Like that is what I'm interested in, right? Because if you have the sense of belonging, if you feel close to somebody or something, you have usually higher empathy, you have better self-esteem, there are much lower rates on anxiety and depression and all of that. There's this positive feedback loop and just generally increased health outcomes. Again, I'm not the health specialist, but social wellness contributes so much to better overall health as well. So that's why I'm so interested in that. And I'm interested to see what can be done. Like, how can we think as a society more about you as a wonderful group? And how do we make sure we can engage and tap into your knowledge and in your experiences that you bring? Like, how can we make sure we actually need to tap into your experiences because we have a declining birth rate and have a declining workforce, right? We'll need you. So how do we leverage that? Well, there are some approaches. You might have heard some countries have now started to put kindergartens into retirement homes. Might have heard that. Or like co-generational, like intergenerational family homes. I think it's actually something historically that we have lost. I don't know about you, but I grew up with my grandmother living with us. It was just, I didn't know any differently. My grandmother was living with us and my parents worked. And when I came home from school, there was my grandmother taking care of me, right? So it was just for her, that was the purpose, that she was, kind of the caregiver, and we lived as a larger family community. I think we have lost some of that, to be honest. Now it's like every generation by themselves. And if you can't live by yourself anymore, well, there's something called nursing home, right? So but there might be other ways we can structure it. And as I said, some countries have now tried to bring together senior homes, not necessarily nursing homes, but retirement homes, nursing homes, with like schools or kindergartens, or, there is in the UK, this initiative of seniors to have students living with them, like because students need a room. And seniors might need help in the household to get a few things done. So how about offering a student a room in your house, and in return have the student help you out on a few things? So all of these arrangements have started to pop up, and I think in Canada we might see a bit more of that as well. Okay, coming to the individual level, and that is where I'm hoping we can have a discussion as well. What does that mean? So how do you think about your, I call it the purposeful third act, right, after post-career? You might be lucky. I think most of you, if you come from any academic background or you have had, sort of the opportunities, quite frankly, we can design a pretty neat portfolio of activities if we want to. For ourselves. Not everybody is in that privileged position. If you are retiring or you have to go because a package is handed to you, it can be pretty challenging how to find purpose. And it sounds maybe nice for the first 6 months or maybe a year. You go and travel and you go and play golf or whatever your hobbies might be. But then there will be that Monday morning and it's 10 o'clock and you've already read the Globe and Mail from cover to cover and there's no email and there's no phone call. And you're thinking, oh, I'm wondering what to do today. And, and there's gender differences on that too. Like women maintain a social network and friendships much longer. And so when you ask a woman who is about to retire, she wants to spend more time with her friends and with her social network. If you ask a man who's about to retire, they will say, oh, I want to spend more time with my wife. Yeah. But purpose, right? How do you find purpose? And so there are sort of some steps. And ideally, the first one usually is get inspired. Like listen to other people, find some role models, find some maybe you create your personal advisory board, as I call it. Have 2 or 3 people from different parts of your life come together and talk to you like mentors would do, right? Have your personal advisory board, or just friends who would talk to you. Connect with others, get inspired. Like, what are others doing? What is out there? There's also a part that is now offered by quite a few universities and business schools that will help you prepare for that transition. So Harvard was probably the first one who came out with it. Maybe it was Stanford. One of the two was the first one coming out probably almost 10, 12 years ago. They have these transition programs that help you to figure out what to do post-career. Now, they're not cheap. I think the Harvard one is about 90,000 US dollar. Yeah. Now, I probably should say, just because I'm from Rotman, we are considering, we are advertising currently a career transition program as well. We'll launch it in the fall. And it comes with a price tag of a $45,000. So that's Canadian, right? Exactly. It's a bargain. Come on. But so in my mind, these programs, they are truly only for the, top 1 percentile, right? These are the senior executives who are like, yeah, I need some guidance. I'm happy to pay. I pay my personal coach so much anyway. Why not? Right. So it's not necessarily for everybody else. And that's where I'm sort of a bit struggling, like what is more appropriate? Like this, there is a large group of professional, educated people that probably doesn't want to pay $45,000 for a transition program. But how do you unlock? How do you find your ideas? How do you find your best self? Right? It's sort of the learning and unlocking, and then there's the mobilizing. Like, okay, so now I know what I really like to do. Where are the opportunities? Like, where can I chip in? Where can I help out? Where can I be involved? What communities are there? Like the senior college, right? Great community, wonderful. So going to show you one example, and yeah, it's a little bit promotion just because I found this particular group very helpful as I'm thinking about what my transition might look like. And so just talking about this one, there aren't that many out there that are focusing on social wellness. And if you have examples, I'm really interested in our discussion to hear from you what else you might find, like the senior college, for example. But there aren't that many groups out there that are really focusing on purpose and on, finding a community as your post-career. So this one is called What's Next 50. And it is a community. It's not for profit. And the idea is to help you find the next thing, but also to find like-minded people, to work on something, to have purpose on something. I like it because it's completely peer-led. It's very easy to get involved, and really it's purpose first. So I'm just going to show you two things about that. And forgive me that I'm pitching it. I just don't know of many others. So it's a membership based, they call it a social wellness platform. So currently it's mainly online. There are some in-person meetings every now and then in Toronto, but because it goes across Canada, it's mainly an online one. And it is sort of built for midlife, later life transition. And so there are a couple of points there. They have also talks like we do here, workshops that help you go through a sort of a thought exercise to help you think about what else you could do, what your next chapter could look like. It helps you connecting with lots of the other members that are there. And then the best part, which I like the best about, is there are various affinity groups, or there are people out there who have an idea and want to do something, but I don't have the energy to do it all by myself. I could need somebody to help me with the outreach or with the, driving this idea forward or, implementing something. And so people rally around these various ideas and idea labs. And just to give you a few examples, what's currently going on there, for example, there is this group that started a squash and education alliance where at Jane and Finch, they take your youth at risk in the afternoon to a squash club. Like one of the members is a member at the squash club, and they say, well, in the afternoon, it's not that busy at our club. So I need people who can drive some of those kids to the squash club. We show them how to play it. They can let loose for an hour or two and let their aggression out rather than the squash clubs and somewhere else. Huge success. Such a simple idea. Such a phenomenal success, right? And people just rallied around it. One said, yeah, I can help you drive. And the next one said, I can help you with the sign up. And the next one said, I can do a bit of materials for this to share with the youth. Awesome. There's also something around newcomer integration. There's a group that is interested in helping youth in Kenya. There's a group that is currently looking at 2 steps home, like little fill-in houses to help homelessness in the community. There are all kinds of these opportunities. So that's why I kind of like this, What's Next 50. And if you like it, feel free to sign up. But, I'm just saying that's kind of a neat organization. And again, I haven't come across many others. And this is not 45,000, right? This is like $320 a year or something, like much more doable. Okay, I stopped the promotion there, but I also want to point out one more aspect. Do you know how many seniors are starting a business? Startup. You think startups are for the 20-year-olds? Think again. We have over 250,000 seniors over the age of 65 who are entrepreneurs. Not bad, huh? And when I say entrepreneurs, so there's a difference between self-employed and entrepreneur. So self-employed is one thing, but as an entrepreneur, you are somebody who is building a business and with the idea to eventually hire other people, right? That's an entrepreneur. Like self-employed, yeah, you can sell your arts and craft or something. That's not entrepreneur. I'm talking entrepreneur, starting a business with the idea to hire other people. So this is real impact on the economy, right? Imagine. I mean, I actually had to look up the numbers because I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And the good thing about this is not only do they bring skill and knowledge, of course, but they also, because most of us are sort of financially okay, we have some wealth. We don't have to get necessarily big funding unless, we're starting something really big. People bring actually great risk tolerance. Like, there was the survey done and they said 27% of this group of the 65 plus, only 27% said, I have a risk, I'm a fear of failure, that my startup isn't going well. That compares to the rest of the population, about 43% say that, right? So much higher risk tolerance, kind of cool. It's like, yeah, I have some money to play with and I want to do something. I want to be an entrepreneur. Definitely retired, but not expired, right? And so there was the survey done by TD Canada Trust. I'm just sharing that with you because I thought it was really interesting to see. So they surveyed, so Canadians 60 plus considering retiring. 15% that said, I'm already started a new business. 39% said, I'm considering starting a new business. So about more than half of the Canadian kind of baby boomers have started or considered starting a business. Not bad. And if you think about their motivation when they ask, so why would you want to do that? Why are you interested in that? There's something about, pride and achievement. 50% said that. 53% said, well, I think I'm going to make more money. And 58% said, I really want to be my own boss now, which is, acceptable, right? As a matter of fact, what the survey also found is by far the fastest growing segment of startups is in the 50 plus age group. It's 30% of startups in Canada, 50 plus people. And I dare to say they are also more successful. So it's keep that in mind. It's never too late, is what I'm trying to say, to start something up. All right, so I'm wrapping up as I have 3 more minutes. If you have found your own footing, I'd like to call out to you to maybe help others too. And whether it's in any of those communities that you're part of, bring people in. There are a lot of people who are looking for purpose. And again, I'm not the medical doctor, but isolation leads to depression. And there is a lot of age depression out there, which is very sad to see. So, if you know of people, bring them in, help somebody else, right, to find their footing. And, I'm very excited about the discussion. I want to hear what becomes possible and your ideas when longevity is taken seriously. And so the little guy here says, oh, is this it? And the other one said, it's only fun if you have purpose. So thank you very much.